Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. I am your host, Rosie, and I am thrilled to have you here with us today. If you're new to the show, we are all about empowering women in the corporate space to advance their careers with intention and confidence. Today, we have an amazing guest with us, Cassie Spencer. She is a career coach with a passion for helping others leverage their education, skills, experiences, and passions into meaningful careers. In this episode, we're diving into the value of career coaching and how to navigate career paths early in life. So, with that, let's dive right in. If you are listening to this, there's a good chance that you're a woman in the corporate world who feels stuck in your career and you're not sure how to advance. If that's the case, I want to let you know that I have an incredible resource that can help you. I created a promotion readiness checklist with you in mind. The checklist can help you pinpoint exactly what you need to work on to advance in your career. And the best part, it's completely free and it only takes 3 minutes to complete. I have helped countless women like you achieve their career goals, and I know exactly what it takes to succeed in the corporate world. My promotion readiness checklist is a perfect tool to help you get started on your path to success. You will find the link on the episode website, or you can go on nowomanleftbehind.com to take the quiz. Hey, Casey, thank you so much for being here on the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. So I know you and I spoke a while back, and one of the things that I really want to know about is how did you become a career coach so early in life? I know that you had met with a career coach yourself, and one of the things that you had asked is like, how do I get your job? So tell me a little bit about that experience for you.
Yeah, of course. I always love telling this story because I was very much the typical kind of college student who was changing my major all the time, trying a bunch of different things, and honestly just so stressed about my own career path and feeling that pressure of like, I have to pick something, I have to know what I want to do. And so I had tried everything. I'd switched my majors a few times. I studied abroad for more than one reason, but definitely one of them was hoping that I'd have this big career epiphany while I was abroad. And spoiler, that didn't happen. But I was lucky in a sense that I came back from studying abroad and I took a technical writing course, which at the time I was still an English major. That was one of the majors I had declared. And I had always been interested in writing, but I didn't necessarily want to major in it. I didn't necessarily see it as a longer term career path for me, but I was on that track and enrolled in a technical writing course. And it was through that course that we did a lot of different types of writing, but someone from the University Career Center came. And it was my first kind of experience really writing a professional resume and cover letter. We developed like professional branded websites and LinkedIn profiles. And it was through that interaction with a career coach that I then was like, okay, I need to actually go sit down and talk to someone about this. And so I'd been meeting with a career coach a handful of times and talking about different options and interests. And it was during one of those meetings, we were actually discussing potential gap year programs. I was a senior getting ready to graduate and still exploring my options. At this point, I'd become a communications major, but my career coach was discussing kind of gap year. How can I gain some additional experience, participate in some of those gap year programs as an option? And it was in that moment that I truly had kind of the aha light bulb moment where I was like, wait a second, you do this. Like this is a job. And he was like, yep. And I was like, how do I get your job? Like what is this? I want to have these conversations. And it was in that moment that I realized I already had that knack and interest in writing and kind of the precision that comes with resumes in particular. I was writing all of my friends' resumes and getting them huddled
Mm.
around the table at the library of like, you all need LinkedIn profiles. So I was kind of doing these things anyways. And then from there, the more I learned about it and talked with that career coach, They said, go to grad school, study student affairs and higher education. You'll work on a college campus. And I was sold. I was like, great, that's what I'm going to do. And so that is the story. That's how then I ended up in this field. So I must have been, I don't know, 22, 21, 22 when I kind of had that aha moment.
That is amazing. Now, you know that when we're growing up, we have coaches for little league and dance and piano and cheerleading and all these like sports coaches. But when you step into the working force, people stop talking about coaches. What's one or two things, especially in your age group? Obviously, you kind of got interested because people were coming to you and said, "Hey, how are you doing that?" Like, and you were already the subject matter expert at the time because you were, hey, you have to have your LinkedIn profile. But what are like one or two reasons why you feel, especially young women, need a career coach?
Mm. Wow, I love this. I would say two reasons that young women in the workforce need career coaches. The first and foremost is I think there is so much value in having a sounding board to talk about your experiences and to talk about your goals with. That's something that my hope is that everyone has friends and family members and other people that they can have those conversations with, but those conversations are coming from and that advice is coming from their experience. And
Mhm.
as we navigate the corporate world, it has changed a lot and it's going to continue to change. And one person's goals and experiences, even if you love and trust them so much, may not be the best advice for you or that aligns. So I think having that unbiased, more subject matter expert opinion that you can trust and kind of have that safe space to bounce ideas off of and to encourage and motivate and support you is just a huge, huge benefit from it. And then I think the second piece of it, the second really value in all of this is that when you have that coach, especially when you are earlier in your career, and I say that even like in the first 10 years, that can be someone that really helps to see the things that you can't see. So to challenge you to think about like, what do you want your career to look like longer term? And are you in a role currently that is allowing you to gain the skills or to grow in the way that you want to? So I think there's that combination of both support and encouragement, but also then a little bit of that challenge to help you think about where you're going and where you want to be and how to get there.
That is so on point. And the thing that I love about you is that you can attract women and of course, No Woman Left Behind. I am really passionate about empowering women specifically, but you can attract your age bracket and say, hey, there is value in having a career coach. Whereas I'm more of someone that is in maybe their mid 30s that are trying to continue to move up the corporate ladder, that have already been in the corporate space 10, 15 years, and they feel like they're stuck because they're not moving through their career as quickly as they would want to move. And one of the things that I advocate is having that custom career roadmap, because just kind of what you were saying, your neighbor or your family or friends, they can give you advice, but it's not custom to you. It's based on their experiences. And so having that custom career roadmap is so critically important. And I am talking about this with anybody and everybody that will listen to me,
Yes.
because if you don't have that strategy with the tactics, then you're just going to be spinning your wheels. And I know you talked about goals a little bit, and I'm a certified high performance coach. We think of goals not just, in one atmosphere, but it's almost kind of like a stratosphere. So you have to identify your dreams first. Then from there, you identify your goals and then you support them with your routines and your tasks. And then it's all very synergetic because it all works in concert with each other.
Mm.
So it's so enlightening, and I just love the fact that you're working with the younger age group and really advocating for hey, you really need to know what you want to do. And I'm sure you've heard so many people are just not interested in their jobs. They go to work and then they leave work, but they're not really present. They're not really contributing with all of their skills that they could have. So tell me, what are some things that you have noticed, especially in your age bracket of like the younger women that are trying to advance, but they're just kind of getting stuck or lost? Like, what are some things that you're seeing?
I think it's so interesting right now of how the world of work and kind of a lot of our thoughts and opinions and feelings are changing. And I say our collectively across the
Mhm.
board, regardless of age and gender and industry and all of that. There is a lot changing right now. And I would say, along with that, I also think it's interesting, and a lot of the people that I work with and interact with, a combination of people who are in their 30s and kind of at that point where they're like, okay, I've been working for, maybe 8 to 10 years now, could be 7 to 10 years now. And then also people who are more in the recent grad level, just entering the workforce and kind of everywhere in between there. But I find that there's a lot of change in terms of the value that people are putting on their jobs, and
Mm,
this difference in like, do I want a job that I am so passionate about and fulfilled by, where I feel energized and supported, where my skills are put to use? And there is a solid chunk of people who are in that camp and they are working towards that and they want that and that's important to them. And I think we're also seeing an interesting shift, and maybe it's just more prominent now. People are talking about it more, but of people who are saying, I'll go to work, I'll do what I need to do. I don't want to hate it, right? I want to like have a baseline kind of content level of work, but more than that, I want it to support my life. And I
mhm.
don't need all this fulfillment to come from my work. And I think there's a lot of factors that come into this just in how our world has changed over the last handful of years and the way that some companies and businesses are operating and kind of where the generational shifts are happening in terms of you have some companies that are being led by people who have worked for them for 40 plus years, and then some people
Mhm.
who are working at companies that their peers are starting and growing and leading. And so I think there's just a lot of shift in that right now, and it's interesting to see. And I think for myself as a coach, it has really shifted some of the conversations that I'm having, because for me personally, if I'm working with a client that says I want X, Y, and Z in a job, I don't think I wanna work in something that I feel incredibly passionate about. I wanna be content in the work that I do, but I want it to support my lifestyle and my other interests outside of work. Personally, I'm not there to tell them that they need to go find their passion and that their
Sure.
passion has to provide a paycheck. Um, and for other people where they are like, "Yeah, I wanna figure it out and I wanna do something," like, that's great too. So I think it's just an interesting kind of shift, and I hate to even call it a divide, but more than that, I think it's just people really reckoning with like what is important to them and what do they want out of life and out of work, and how that all works together.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine too. If you're content in the job that you're doing, more power to you, right? Because some people, I know one of my former managers used to call you need to have those steady people that are just they're good workers and they're doing a decent job, but they're not knocking it out of the ballpark per se, but
Mhm,
they're still a valued employee. I think where I come in more of it's my passion to help people is people that are stuck, that do
mhm,
feel like they want to continue to move up that corporate ladder, whether it's a lateral position, a maybe a team lead, maybe just be a subject matter expert in their same team, or just leave that job or that career altogether, whatever
yeah,
their next level is. But those are the people that I'm really wanting to help because it stinks feeling like you're stuck and you're trying to do that shift and nothing is happening. That's kind of where I'm so hopeful that people are not unhappy in their jobs or feel like their job sucks. They're just because all that unhappiness kind of sifts over to their personal life too. And
Yes.
that's not good either. So, all right. So I know that you have a podcast yourself
Mhm.
and happenstance. So tell me a little bit about your podcast and what is the purpose of your podcast?
Yeah, of course. So I host a podcast called Happenstance. I've been putting episodes out for about a year and a half now, which is exciting. And the whole premise behind Happenstance, the name is rooted in the happenstance learning theory or the planned happenstance learning theory, which is a career development theory that looks at how individuals choose their careers and that happenstance, the things that literally just happen by chance, the
Mhm.
things that we could never plan for or never expect to happen are such a large contributing factor to the paths that we go down. So this could be anything and everything from one conversation that you had with someone that prompted a thought to then pick a major to then go down a career path. It could also be one experience that maybe you never thought you'd had, but one day at work, someone asked you to quickly design something on Canva and you realized that you loved it and then you shifted your career path. So it can be these happenstance moments can be anything big or small. For me, it was certainly a happenstance moment that I ended up in that technical writing class, and then a happenstance moment that I kind of asked that question. And later on, when I showed up the first day to grad school and I met my advisor, it was purely happenstance that her research interests were also in career development and the post university transition. That is something I could have planned for. I would love to tell you all that I was a really thoughtful student who was researching the faculty that I was going to work with when I applied to grad school, but I didn't. It was happenstance that that happened. And so the whole idea behind the podcast is to really highlight these happenstance moments, both in terms of our careers and looking at how people have become very successful in their careers, made pivots and changes. But I also really love looking at the other happenstance moments. So the things that come from people's passion projects or the happenstance moments with their side hustle, the happenstance moments that led to something else in their life. So I do take a pretty broad approach to it, but I love getting into the story of how people ended up on their different paths.
I love that. Well, I'll tell you my one little happenstance that I always like when I think about it, I'm always just in awe because I'm 100% Mexican. We lived in Mexico City and then we moved from Mexico City right at the beginning of high school. So I started high school. My parents had no clue what anything was, so I kind of had to figure things out on my own. And like the first day of my freshman year, I had no idea what a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or senior was, like totally clueless. And so I met with the guidance counselor, and literally they were like, "Oh, your grades are really good from Mexico, so I'm just going to put you on the college preparatory track." And I was like, "Okay." Like I had no clue. So they had two tracks, vocational and then college. And so when I think of that moment, I'm always like, holy camoli, that one person. And I wish I would remember who that person is because I would have wanted to go back. And now it's been like many years since I graduated high school. But I wish I would have known that that was a happenstance moment because they made the decision that I was going to go to college. College wasn't even in the realm of my possibilities at the time, but they put me on that track. And
Mm,
because I went to college, I got my job in the insurance industry. And by the way, that was another happenstance moment for me because they were like, okay, well, you can go into underwriting or claims. And then they just put me into the underwriting track. And unbeknownst to me, people in the claims department are always dealing with people that have losses. So they're not happy necessarily because they're
mm,
dealing with, customers that have had big losses. So it was just happenstance that they put me into the underwriting track. So those are two very brief examples for me. But you're absolutely right. Like you just never know how. And most people that end up in the insurance world is because they knew somebody who knew somebody. I
Yeah.
actually went to school for insurance. I graduated in actuarial science. So I was one of the few people that actually went to school for insurance because most people just ended up in insurance. So it was just so interesting. But I love the premise of your podcast. So
Thanks.
congratulations for that.
Thank
So
you.
tell me about another project that you're working on right now.
Yeah, so a couple projects that I've been focused on more lately. I do create a lot of content around career development, career coaching, all of that. And so, while it is, I guess, part of my job because I do coaching and that is a way to bring in clientele and all of that, I do also say it is a passion project. Creating that content and sharing content. I aim to be very accessible with it and to provide really practical tips and information and advice for job seekers. And so I've been putting content out intentionally for maybe 4.5 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, a good amount of time that even before I really launched my own coaching business, I always just felt that I had so much information in my brain. I
Mm-hmm.
was working on a college campus, kind of following that traditional career trajectory that my career coach had set out for me. And I just found myself having those same conversations and similar topics. And I was like, the students I'm meeting with are asking these same questions. Like there are other people in the world that have these same questions. And so, um, doing that and creating that content, I definitely feel like it like hits that creative itch that I often have, and allows me to be more creative in how I'm sharing that information and kind of providing it. So that's a project that I'm been working on lately, and continue to kind of work on. And then another project that's kind of popped up in 2024, something I've been thinking about for a while, is launching a job search accountability group. And so through a lot of the work that I've done, I just see time and time again that people have all the tools and the resources. Maybe they have their resume and LinkedIn updated, they're ready to job search, but the process of actually going through a job search, as you know, involves so many twists and turns and challenges, and the motivation to job search and kind of navigating that can be really challenging. And so, I see a lot of value in kind of having that group atmosphere to learn as a group, know that you're not experiencing what you're experiencing alone. You're not the only one. And so, really looking forward to bringing groups of people together this year to talk about their job searches and to kind of have that open forum, those accountability partners, and also those check in points, to kind of have that advice and sounding board along the way, and then to also share the wins and the challenges with other people who are also motivated to make their next career move and switch their job, pivot their career, whatever the case may be.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to announce that the Unlock the Leader Within membership is finally launched and live. This segment is brought to you by our very own No Woman Left Behind. The Unlock the Leader Within membership was designed to empower you in your corporate career to advance your career with confidence. Confidence is so lacking these days. When you join the Unlock the Leader Within membership, you will gain the ability to become a high performer. You will have your custom career roadmap and more than anything. And the thing that's most exciting to me is that we will build an amazing community of like minded, ambitious professional women that are there to help and support and learn from each other. This incredible membership is up and running, so check it out. Go ahead and scan the QR code over here, or if you're listening to this episode, go to the episode website and click on the Unlock the Leader Within membership to check it out. And now back to our episode. Well, I love the job search accountability platform because, like you said, the social learning alone and also the motivation, because sometimes when you're going at it alone, it's kind of like dating, right? Like when you're trying to date, you get ghosted by companies, you get ghosted by people that you're trying to
Mhm.
date. And it's a very lonely experience. But if you commiserate with your girlfriends or your guy friends and you're like, oh my gosh, this story happened to me, they're like, oh, let me tell you what happened to me. But doing it as a group, searching for a job, especially with you at the helm and kind of guiding people, I think that's so critical because they don't feel as alone. They have that social learning from one person maybe doing one thing and they're talking about their situation and it sparks an idea for somebody else. And that's like huge. So I know in your description of some of the skills that you have, you say you're obviously a communicator, but also an includer and a maximizer. So tell me a little bit about what you mean by being an includer and a maximizer.
Yeah, of course. So the skills that are listed kind of on my LinkedIn profile, they're part of my summary or about section. These come from the Clifton Strengths Strength Finders skill. And so for anyone listening who doesn't know, Strengths Finder or Strengths Quest, they've used a couple different names over the years, but it is an assessment that looks at the innate strengths that you have as an individual. So while it is used a lot in the career world, it's not an assessment that's going to give you a list of jobs or anything like that. But we'll really look at, again, those innate strengths, these things that you were born with, not the skills or strengths that you've developed over the years. And so it's an assessment that I took for the first time when I was in grad school. And again, I really found it to be kind of that like aha moment in a sense where a lot of things clicked for me and it helped me to realize some of the strengths that I had never seen as strengths. I always think about the includer one. Being an includer, it identifies the strength as you are someone who can bring people together and someone who is often thinking about how everyone's coming together and does everyone feel included? Do they feel part of the group? Wanting to kind of do that. And I always find this one funny because, especially growing up and when I was in high school, I did have a pretty large group of friends, but the friends within that wouldn't necessarily say that they were a large group of friends. And there would often sometimes be these tension points of like, ah, Cassie, do we have to invite everyone? Like that type of
Yeah,
response where I'm like, yeah, invite everyone, tell them all to come over. That'll be so fun. I had some friends who were like, again, like, can we just hang out?
yeah.
And so it's this funny thing to take this assessment and then to have these strengths that kind of come through and that highlight is like what some people deem as a weakness of yours can
Mm,
actually be a strength. And there is a lot to this about how you manage it and all of that. But a really cool assessment in my mind and one that I think fascinating to think about how you work in groups, the value that you bring to different projects and scenarios can be really interesting. And just a little bit more of a unique language to talk about who you are. Like instead of me being like, yeah, I'm a people person, I like
mm,
people, or I'm extroverted, like it's so much deeper than that, which I appreciate. So that's the includer one. Maximizer is another one of my top five, which is how the assessment works. It gives you your top five strengths out of, I believe there's a total of 37 now. I think they added one in recent years. But Maximizer is a strength that really looks at kind of how I approach different projects and things of that nature. And the Maximizer strength essentially says that you're always looking to improve something.
mm,
And again, this is one that gave me a lot of clarity. I think I often would say to friends and family, like, I just don't think I'm ever a content person. And I didn't really have the language to describe that, but it was more so this strength of maximizing is that I'm always looking at how can I improve something? How can we take that and make it better? And for a long time, that meant that I lacked a lot of satisfaction, right? Like it was like, okay, now what? Now what? Now what? But having kind of this context to think about it in that way was really helpful for me. So I definitely recommend everyone take Strengths Finder. I found it to be so powerful and it's continued to be powerful kind of throughout my career. I took that assessment, I don't know, years and years ago.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, just a really interesting way to think about how you operate, essentially, how you work in different settings. And I think it can be a powerful conversation to then have with a coach or a boss or a manager, that type of thing, to help really lean into your natural strengths in a work environment.
Sure. And so obviously there's many different assessments, right? But I myself have taken the Strengths Finder, which is by Gallup, Gallup is a world-renowned company.
Yeah.
But I'm actually a certified Colby consultant. So
Hmm.
Colby is another assessment, and they have things like Fact Finder and Quick Start. But it's similar where it uses how do you instinctively work, kind of like the Strengths Finder, like your innate strengths, and are you in the right job or not? And so employers can actually give a slightly different Colby assessment to their employees to see if they are actually doing the right type of job. And that's actually very helpful for employers as well. So it's both for hiring, obviously the individual, the employer. So, but again, all of these things are just tools that people
Exactly.
have, and without either a coach or a strategy or a plan, then it's just one piece of the puzzle. So you kind of have to put it all together to actually make headway and continue to, get to those dreams and goals with your routines and your tasks. So I love that. Okay, so one other question is, you're working on your cooking? What are you doing with the dream of the dinner cookbook? Tell me about that.
Yeah, sure. So, 2 years ago, we just recently entered 2024, so it must have been the holidays in 2022. My sister gave me a cookbook that's called I Dream of Dinner. And essentially, she gave me that cookbook, and I started thinking about, like, I only own a handful of cookbooks. I usually just pull recipes off the internet or pull them up on my phone. But when she gave me that cookbook, I made the really intentional decision of, like, I want to actually use this. And through that process, decided to kind of make it a goal to work my way through the cookbook and to eventually make every recipe that's in there. So it's been a fun process to kind of go through and to pick a recipe and then either make it for myself, make it for my roommate, invite friends over, and that type of thing. So just kind of a fun thing to add to that. I wish I knew how I sparked this idea, but the first day that I actually made one of the recipes, I grabbed a marker and I wrote the date and who I was eating with and just a little note of it. And so that's been a fun tradition to kind of carry through the cookbook, that I'm not just like checking the box, but that I guess it's now becoming kind of like a scrapbook memory book that I can flip back through the recipes and kind of see, like, oh yeah, I made that on whatever day in 2023. And these are the 3 people that I shared that meal with. And just being a little bit more intentional about that process, and trying to challenge myself a little bit more in the kitchen and try some new recipes.
That is awesome. I love that. I have about 30 or 40 cookbooks and I use maybe two of them. So,
Yeah.
also, I think there was a movie about Julia Childs, and there was like, I don't even remember the premise. I remember the cookbook was about Julia Childs, and the person was doing all the recipes in the Julia
Hmm.
Childs cookbook. So it was really interesting because they would show in the movie Julia Childs kind of giving her advice or whatever. But towards the end of the year, the husband was like, "Oh my God, my stomach can't take this," because it was like really heavy food. But
Yeah.
congratulations on doing that fun, creative, and intentional thing. I absolutely love that. So kudos to
Thanks.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have talked about a lot of different things, but I guess the one thing that I want to leave our audience with is, can you provide them with maybe the one tip that you think someone can carry into their careers right now, especially for the young women that are in their first like decade of work? What would that tip be for them to advance in their careers?
My one tip, and it's hard to pick just one, but my one tip would be, I would advise everyone, especially people who are early in their career, but this goes for anyone too, is to develop your personal board of directors. And what I mean by that is, like, most companies, nonprofits, they have a board of directors, typically anywhere from 3, 5, maybe 12 people. There's no perfect number here, but they have a board of directors, people that help them make decisions that they can bounce ideas off of, that help kind of run the organization. And so your personal board of directors is similar. They're not going to make all your decisions, but essentially it is developing the list of people in your mind, or to actually write it down can be even better. Who are those people that when you need something, that when you need advice, when you need a job, when you need someone to cheer you on, when you need someone to be super blunt and honest with you, that you have those people that you know without a doubt you can go to, and those people that you are going to intentionally work to maintain or develop a relationship with. This is something that was first advised to me when I was in grad school. Again, I was really lucky that I had an advisor who, was interested in the same things that I was and was doing research in the same areas that I was interested in, but also that kind of presented this idea to me and then became and still is a member of my personal board of directors. But I think it is something that is so, so, so powerful and so underutilized. And so I would encourage everyone, like, grab a piece of paper or pull up the notes on your phone and just start to think about, like, who are some of those people, both professionally but also personally. It can be a mix that kind of fit some of those categories. Who's further along in your career and on that similar career path? Who is more of that peer to peer level? That's something that's been so valuable to me, to have someone on my board of directors who is like quite literally on the same path that I'm on, and we're like in it together. In the same
Mm.
way that having someone who's a handful of years ahead and then even more ahead. And then also having someone who, like I said, I have someone on my board of directors, and I tell him, he knows straight up, he was one of my internship supervisors, and he is my person when I need something told to me straight and blunt and honestly. Like, I know he's the person who's going to give that to me.
Mhm.
And someone else who I know, no matter what I'm saying, they're going to shake the pom poms and cheer me on and tell me to go for it. So you want a range of people. But I think having that board of directors, it's just so valuable. And I think something that continues to, the value just compounds year over year of having these people that you know are always in your corner.
Mm. First of all, that is a very original tip. I know I always ask my guests tips, so congratulations for having, an original tip. But also, as you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, who's on my board of directors? Because
Mhm.
I never really thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Like, I have my best friend who's my person for anything that, life throws at me. I have three of my sisters, my couple of college roommates. So it really is a cool idea to kind of write it down. And even like, I think what I'm going to do is write it down, but also kind of say, like why would I be
Mhm.
going to this person? Why would I be, what kind of advice would I be seeking from this person?
Yeah.
But that is a fabulous tip. So I greatly appreciate that very much. Any final words, Casey?
I would just say, I think like the premise of our conversation today is that like we need other people. Like, the way that we are successful in our careers is with other people. And so, that doesn't mean they need to hold your hand the whole way, but having those people to bounce ideas off of, and listening to podcasts like this, and reaching out to people to ask questions and to seek their advice and to even just have conversations. Like, that's the whole way we got connected, was just a simple conversation. There's so much value, and there will almost always, if not always, always be a nugget that can help you think about something you're doing a little bit differently, or think about a step that could help you get to where you want to be. So yeah, I would say, like, find your people and be intentional with that. Let people know, like, if you want them to be your mentor, or if you're like, hey, you're my cheerleader, I appreciate that. Let them know.
I love that. And that you said a word, intentional. I just started listening to one of Wayne Dyer's books all about intentionality. And it
Mhm.
really is almost magical what happens in your life when you become really intentional, especially about your career. Because if you leave your career on autopilot, it's just going to derail eventually, and you're not going to like where you end up. So again, very good information. I love all of the things that you've shared, and your tip was amazing. So thank you so much for all of your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Very inspiring conversation that I just had with Cassie. Cassie leaves me with two primary takeaways from my conversation with her. The first one is that she emphasizes the importance of having a career coach, especially for younger women that are just coming into the workforce. As she mentioned, a career coach provides unbiased expert opinion. We serve as a sounding board. We can discuss your experiences and career options, and it's all with an external perspective, which is invaluable. The second thing she shared is that changing majors, exploring different career options, and then finally discovering your passion could be through a happenstance moment. It could be just one brief moment in your life that pivots you completely from one thing to another thing. And you need to be open to those new experiences and understand that career paths are quite often not linear. So you want to have that flexibility and that openness that leads you to your true calling. Cassie also left us with an actionable tip. She introduces us to the concept of a personal board of directors, and I loved this. Cassie explains that your personal board of directors is comprised of individuals in your life who can offer diverse perspectives and support. So she says, write down the names of all the people that are in your sphere and the people that you typically go seek advice or support from. And these people become your personal board of directors. So the individuals can be your family members, it could be friends, mentors, coworkers, anybody that you can think of that gives you that support and that advice will become part of your personal board of directors. So I think that's pretty powerful. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to complete the promotion readiness checklist and check out the Unlock the Leader Within membership. All the links will be in the episode website, including Cassie's contact information. I would absolutely love it if you could share what happenstance moment happened in your career that made you completely pivot. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.